Hello everyone, today I'm going to show off Shard. Shard is a framework that me and my business partner Will have created, and we created this framework in order to basically just utilize ourselves, honestly. And so we've had many iterations of different frameworks and then also Shard, and kind of at the start of the very beginnings of the other frameworks, kind of just complicated things. I noticed that a lot in other frameworks where it's a little bit too fancy, which is nice. But I think it's only nice for the framework creator, in my opinion, because they know everything. They know all the cool quirks. But sometimes it could be a big learning curve for other people. And so Shard tries to minimize the fanciness, kind of keep it simplistic Roblox style, but also incorporating some good practices like single file architecture, avoiding cyclic dependency, and also providing cool packages. So let's go ahead and get started. So at the very forefront, Shard is a module loader with a lifecycle. So it loads all the services, which you don't even need to call services. It could be a script, it could be a handler that you just put in a folder. If it has a .new, then it goes ahead and it constructs it. So if you want to DI like services or whatever, then you can. But also we have some profile store and replica. These are very commonly used resources that handle data and replication, which we'll go into a second. But going back to the object orientation, like you could have singletons or just normal modules, and the framework will still load them as is. And we try to make all of our packages that we provide both object oriented and then also singleton. So I'll go ahead and show off how easy it is to make a game using Shard. So here we go. We have a empty place, and I'm going to use Visual Studio Code. But if you're not aware with Rojo, I will create a plugin that allows us to kind of do the same stuff that I will do in Visual Studio Code. So one cool thing about Shard is that Will made a extension called Shard Framework, and if you install it, then it lets you do some cool things. So if I type out Shard, I can click new project, and what it'll do is that it will initialize Shard for me. It'll just grab from the GitHub and give the latest release of Shard, which is really cool. So just instantly, I kind of already have the backbone of Shard just like that. If I open up Rojo, run Rojo, connect it, it'll just tell me all of Shard. There we go. And there we go. Now we have Shard ready, up and running to go. So if we just run it here, see what happens, you'll kind of see what we do. So here's profile service. It's telling us we're using a mock profile store. So none of this will save. It loaded example service. So it loads the services first, and then it tells us it loaded in 0.0044. Yeah, whatever. It's only one example service, so it'll be really quickly. And then it loads controllers next. So it waits for all the services to be loaded first, and then the client stuff goes next, which is the controller. And then the controller successfully ran. And then after the all the client loads, then we do replica client, because you should only do this once. So we handle the replica client stuff too, if you're aware, if you know about replica. Okay, let's go ahead and make a simple income per second game. So let's just go ahead and make a service called player service. And this will just kind of handle when a player joins. So let me make a file in that. Okay. Now I have a snippet called Shard class. And if I type out player service, then it'll rename everything. Now, if you want to get this snippet, you can. Over here in class snippet, it shows you just copy this in a little tutorial if you want to watch that. Then you got snippets. So cool thing about Shard is that we can have these lifecycle methods, but we could also omit them. Like if we don't need start, so usually start here is we have a module called get module. And this is basically like a register. So I could say like example service, and then maybe like print hello worlds right here, right? And then an example service, let's just going to make a function. There we go, print hello world. And so let's click start. And then let's see if it did it. Here we go. Hello world ran. There we go. So you would want to use that in start because all of the services have been initialized and all the it's added to this register in Git module. And so that's where you use start whenever you want to run whatever after all the services have been initialized. But also, before we move on, if you kind of want to add it like a Git module where it finds something in replicated storage, it does have a fallback for that. So if it can't find the service in the registry or the cache, then it'll search depending on the run context. So it'll check replicated storage, it'll check starter player scripts if you're in the client, then service script service, and replicated if you are on the server after it checks its own registry. Okay, let's remove this. We don't need start. Now let's look into initialize. So we want to detect whenever the player joins, so that way we can give them cache. So let's just go ahead and say observe player. Now this is a cool, I think this is part of Stylua or Lua language server, but it auto imports it. So I just typed out observe player here and it just imported it at the top. And we can get rid of these imports just so that way it doesn't scream at us. Okay. And so now in here, we got to provide a callback that accepts player, and then also has a return function for cleanup. There we go. We'll add a player left. There we go. And a print player joined. So that way we can ensure that this works. There we go. It says player joined, real gvistic, that's me, and then player left. Good. As a developer, it's always good to, test, even if it's like very simple things like this. All right, so they join, and now I want to give them money per second. I'm going to spawn a thread. Alternatively, advanced developers, you could poll. So you do a for loop for each player, and then per second, you give them cache. But as long as you are keeping track of the threads and then disconnecting them, it's all right. It's up to you. So we'll just do the keeping track just because we can utilize this cleanup function right here. So what I'll do is local give cache thread, and this will be a test.spawn, and then it kind of already gave it to me. And then in here, I will say give cache thread cancel if it exists. All right, so while the player exists, wait a second, and then give the player cache. So let's see if this works. All right, giving cache, wait a second, giving cache. Okay, now I leave. Attempt to index thread with cancel because, all right, I forgot that it is task.cancel. Okay, giving cache to real.gvistic. Then I stop. And there we go. I believe it disconnected because it didn't give me any errors, and that's good. Okay, so now what we need to do is we want to set their data. So let's go ahead and do that. So if I type out data and click enter, it will auto import data from server script service.data. This is our profile service. And let's go ahead and grab their profile. We'll do this above. Player profile equals data. And then there is a method called get profile async. And if we pass in the player, then that happens. So I'll pull that up. Data and profile. We could look at all the methods here. Gets the data profile. It also yields, but that's okay in this case. It won't yield much. It could also return nil though. So we want to make sure that the player exists. They might have left. So if not player profile, then yeah, break it. That is fine. Okay, so now what we can do is we could say player profile give cache and then 1. When I type this out, you saw some IntelliSense. So we have get the player, get profile, increment is active. So what we could do is we could do increment and then cache and then this amount by 1. But I'm going to show off how we can make custom methods like that. So let's go ahead and make a custom method like that. If we click open components over here and then player profile, open this up, then this is where we can define custom player profile functions. And I kind of already have an example called the add cache. So I might just like copy this. We'll use it for reference. We'll still type it out. Player profile give cache. Man, you can't really have fun anymore because AI just does it for you. Man, I just want to have fun and type, you know. But okay, fine. So what this does is that we do self is active. So this is a internal method that is defined in here called is active. It uses the profile store method is active because the player they might have left, like I said earlier, and if that is the case, then it would be indexing by nil, and we don't want that, so we'll just add this check up here. Then we get the cache. Now this is a method that Shard provides us, get, and basically it does a recursion of their data templates or their data, and you don't need to use get if you don't want to. It's just for like quick access. But what you could do is you could say like local cache equals and then self dot profile dot data dot cache as you normally would if you don't want to do the recursion. But since it's like very simple, there is not a lot of keys in our data, we'll just do get and set. And so let's go ahead and set up our data template. So we need cache in here. So I have a little example in here. We'll just go ahead and remove that and just say cache. They start off with 0. There we go. Let's go back to player profile. So now if we get the cache, it'll return 0. We add the amount. So if they have 0 plus the amount, so if I pass in 1, it'll be 0 plus 1 equals 1, new amount. If the new amount is less than 0, then just go ahead and make sure it's above 0. I could do a math.clamp on this, but it's all right. And then set the cache with the new amount that we have here, which would be 1 in our case. But let's go back to our player service, and then this should work. But before I kind of go ahead and do that, I want to set the types for it. I wanted to be able to see give cache, and I believe it is in here. And if we do give cache, and then if we go back, let's see if it shows up. There we go, give cache. Awesome. It's pretty cool. You could also inside of here, we could do something like 333, and then we could do like this gives the player cache yo. And then if we go back to player service, and then if I type give cache, it says this gives the cache yo. There we go. Give cache yo. And let's give it 1. And then each time I want to print out the player's cache. So player name has, man, AI just reads my mind. Wow. Okay. Player name has, and then this much cache. So it uses the get cache, and then it adds the tailing word cache. So let's go ahead and click play. I have 1 cache. I have 2 cache. I have 3 cache. Wow. It works. Yay. Okay. Now if I play again, you see it kind of restarts. Oh no, it's not saving. Well, there's two things because of that. I need to firstly set the game to have API service, which I kind of forgot where it is. So we'll click Control P with the new UI. Roblox updated their UI. And we'll do game settings. There we go. Uh-oh. I got saved to Roblox. Okay. Income per second game. Yeah. Okay. There we go. Now you may be asking, why did I leave the share the data? Well, I use AI and I want to make it smarter, so I'll let it read my data. That's fine. Okay. So now if we go to game settings, and then if I go to security, enable Studio API access, click save, and then if I click play, it will say I have 1 cache, good, 3 cache, yep. Before I could click play again, I need to make sure that I turn off profile mock, because if you notice up here at the top, using mock profile store. So what I need to do is I need to go into settings up here and debug mock false. So if you have debug mock true, whenever you join into Studio, it will use mock data so it doesn't update the live servers. And you could play as if you were a new player. Okay, so mock is not there. It didn't give us a print. Alrighty. Now it says I have 8, 9, 10. Alright, we're going to stop at 11 cache. When I click play again, it should say that I have 12 cache. There we go. Oh, it looks like it did it. It went again. W. Okay. Awesome. So we got our money, and but now I want to display it to the client. Let's go ahead and make a little frame, and we will just add that there. Let's make it text scaled. Let's make the font for Doka 1. Let's make the text white. Let's make the background color 0. Okay. There we go. And then a cool trick is if you do loading, when players join, they'll think, oh, well, it's just loading. But what happens is we just update it. It's a little cool development trick. There we go. If you set 0, what will happen is if like their profile takes a little bit longer to load, then it'll say 0 and they'll freak out and they'll be like, oh no, I don't have any money. But it's just like the profile didn't load. They have the money, it's still there, but something happened. Sometimes Roblox either went down or their data services aren't working, whatever it may be. Okay. So now let's make a controller because we're handling the client. So inside of shared, we have controllers. So let's go ahead and create a new folder and call it currency controller. We'll call it cash controller. Why not? There we go. And if I do shard.class and call it cache controller. Now I'm actually going to bring up the documentation because it's been a second since I've used replica clients. And so let's go to controllers and go down. Okay, yeah. Yep. I could either do object oriented or singleton. We already went over that. And then here is a advanced controller. Okay. Now down here, using replica in a controller. Okay. So what we need is we need replica clients. So I'll go ahead and type out replica client and then click enter so it automatically, oh man, that's beautiful, automatically imports it. And then here we could say on new. And now the way that Shard has it set up is that it is player data. So if we go to data down here, if we try to find it, yeah, the replica token is called player data right here. So whenever a token is created, then this will be called and we got to connect something or listen to it. I think they they do something like that. Player, actually it sends in this replica. Okay. And it's actually a dot on new. There we go. All right, so now on here, I can print out replica, and let's see what happens when I load in. Okay, here we go. So it printed out replica. Now this is the replica object. I have data here, and here we go. We have 24 there. Awesome. So that's on new. Now, one thing to know with replica service is that Shard has it set up where it sends to all. It replicates to all clients. And the reason why we do this is if you want to like share something with all the clients, like a visual effect, or like you got a new pet, so spawn the pet. So just one thing that you have to do is I'll go ahead and copy it over here. I'll just copy is local. It checks the tags. Let me fix that up. Auto import players. Here we go. So it checks the tags. So here we got tags, and then it has player, real geovistic. So is the player the local player? And if it's not, then return it. We don't need to call this on new because it's already called for me. And then we do replica on set, and then cache whenever cache is changed. And then it is, I believe, new value and old value. There we go. So I'm just going to print out that. And I believe it should say let's go ahead and just copy this stuff just in case. So from the documentation, onset. Now maybe this is where you'd want to do it in start, so that way we don't would we want to do it start? Maybe not. Let's see what happens. Because I want to call this after everything is initialized. Local player GUI is equal to players dot local player GUI, and then local currency label is equal to currency, and then wait for child's text label. And then let's do currency label dot text equals this money equals that. And then the same thing here in here. There we go. And so now if we click play, there we go. It updates. Yay. So the reason why I kind of did this thing where I moved it to start is because when all the modules are being initialized, they would call this, and sometimes wait for child, they yield a second, so client would take a little longer to load. So even me, I didn't know if I was able to do this, but replica client is good. It ran on new, which is good. It started, and I think that's just the life cycle of Shard. I think it just did it for me. I'll just take a look at it real quickly. Okay, when does it do start? Okay. Yep, that was Shard working for me. So it does start, and then after all of it, it does request data. So everything worked out as planned. Beautiful. Alrighty, that was the demonstration of Shard. Hopefully, if you guys like it, then you can use it yourself. I'll share all the links. But yeah,